Dr. Hei-Jin Park stared at her computer screen in disbelief. The numbers didn't make sense. She had checked them 3 times already, but they still showed the same impossible reading. Something massive was moving through space, bending light around it in ways that defied normal physics. "Du Young, can you come look at this?" she called to her colleague across the observatory's control room. Dr. Du Young Kim walked over, his coffee cup still steaming in the early morning air. The Global Space Defense Initiative's observatory in Chile was quiet at this hour, with most of the night shift heading home. The rising sun painted the Atacama Desert outside in shades of orange and gold. "What did you find?" Du Young asked, leaning over Hei-Jin's shoulder to look at the screen. "Watch this area here," Hei-Jin said, pointing to a patch of stars. She played the recording from the last 6 hours. The stars seemed to blur and shift slightly, as if something invisible was moving past them. Du Young's eyes widened. He put his coffee down and pulled up a chair. "That looks like gravitational lensing," he said slowly. "But there's nothing there that could cause it." "Exactly." Hei-Jin pulled up another screen showing gravity wave readings. "Look at these measurements. Whatever it is, it has the mass of a small mountain, but it's concentrated in a space smaller than a grain of sand." Du Young's face went pale. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "A micro-black hole," Hei-Jin said, "and it's moving through our solar system." They spent the next 2 hours checking and rechecking their data. Hei-Jin's hands shook slightly as she mapped out the object's trajectory. When she finally finished her calculations, she felt her stomach drop. "Du Young," she said quietly, "it's going to intersect with Earth's orbit." The control room was silent except for the soft hum of computers. Through the observatory's dome, they could see the first staff members arriving for the morning shift. "We need to tell Director Lee," Du Young said. Hei-Jin nodded, already dreading the conversation. Director Jai-Ho Lee was known for his skepticism of unusual findings. He had rejected 3 of her previous research proposals for being too speculative. An hour later, they stood in Director Lee's office, watching him review their data on his tablet. His face remained expressionless as he swiped through their findings. "Dr. Park," he said finally, looking up at them, "you realize what you're suggesting is unprecedented. A micro-black hole that changes direction. That defies everything we know about physics." "With all respect, Director," Hei-Jin said, "the data is clear. We've confirmed it through 3 different detection methods." "And you're certain this isn't an equipment malfunction?" Director Lee asked. "We ran full diagnostics," Du Young added. "All systems are working perfectly." Director Lee stood up and walked to his window, looking out at the desert landscape. "Do you understand what will happen if you're wrong? If we raise a false alarm about a threat to Earth, it could cause panic. The GSDI's reputation would be ruined." Hei-Jin stepped forward. "And if we're right, and we do nothing, we're talking about an object that could potentially destroy our planet." The director was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he turned back to them. "You have 48 hours to gather more evidence. If you can prove this threat is real, I'll convene the board. But if you're wrong..." He let the warning hang in the air. As they left his office, Du Young touched Hei-Jin's shoulder. "What now?" Hei-Jin checked her phone, seeing 3 missed calls from her daughter Yoo-Jin. She ignored them for now. There would be time for family matters later. Maybe. "Now," she said, "we prove that Earth is in danger. And then we figure out how to save it." They walked quickly back to the control room, their footsteps echoing in the hallway. Above them, through the observatory's windows, the morning sun continued to rise over the desert, unaware that its light was being bent by an invisible intruder, one that might spell doom for everyone on Earth. Taiwan Choi had been working with space telescopes for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like this. He adjusted the controls of the massive radio telescope, following Hei-Jin's instructions carefully. "There," Hei-Jin said, pointing to the data stream on his screen. "Do you see how the radio waves bend around that point in space?" Taiwan nodded slowly. It's like there's an invisible lens out there. But that's not the strangest part. He pulled up another set of readings. Look at its speed. The object is slowing down. He-Jin frowned. Black holes don't slow down on their own. Nothing in space does. Exactly. Taiwan looked worried. Something is controlling it. They were interrupted by quick footsteps. Myra Song, the youngest physicist on their team, rushed into the control room, her tablet clutched tightly in her hands. "Dr. Park," Myra called out, "I've been analyzing the deceleration patterns. They're not random. They follow a precise mathematical sequence." He-Jin and Taiwan gathered around Myra's tablet as she showed them her findings. The graphs displayed a clear pattern that repeated every few hours. "This isn't natural," Myra said quietly. I think someone made this black hole." Before He-Jin could respond, her phone buzzed. It was a news alert. Her heart sank as she read the headline. "Astronomical anomaly detected. Scientists fear cosmic threat." The story leaked, Taiwan said, looking at his own phone. "Social media is already going crazy with theories." He-Jin's phone rang. It was Director Lee. "Dr. Park, turn on the news right now." They switched on the control room's TV. Every channel was covering the story. Some were calling it a hoax. Others were predicting the end of the world. People were already starting to panic in some cities. "This is exactly what I was afraid of." Director Lee's voice came through the phone. "The board is meeting in 1 hour. You better have solid proof." Myra stepped forward. "Dr. Park, let me present my analysis to the board. If this black hole is artificial, it changes everything. This isn't just a natural disaster we're facing." He-Jin looked at the young physicist. Myra had always been different from other scientists, willing to consider ideas that others dismissed. Right now, they needed different. "Okay," He-Jin said, "but we'll need more than theories. Taiwan, can you get us visual confirmation?" Taiwan turned back to his telescope controls. "I can try something. If we combine data from multiple telescopes and filter it through our new quantum imaging system." For the next 45 minutes, they worked frantically. Taiwan coordinated with observatories around the world. Myra refined her calculations. He-Jin prepared their presentation. Finally, Taiwan called out, "I've got it." The main screen lit up with an image that made them all go quiet. Against the black of space, they could see a perfect sphere of darkness. Around it, stars twisted and stretched like reflections in curved glass, and at its edges, there was a faint pattern of light that couldn't possibly be natural. "It's beautiful," Myra whispered. "And terrifying," He-Jin added. She checked the time. "The board meeting starts in 10 minutes. Let's go show them what we found." As they hurried to the meeting room, He-Jin's phone buzzed again. Another message from Eugene. "Mom, people are saying the world is ending. Please tell me what's going on." He-Jin typed back quickly, "Don't worry. We're working on it. Trust me." She put her phone away and straightened her jacket. First, she had to convince the board. Then she could figure out how to stop an artificial black hole from reaching Earth. And maybe, just maybe, find out who or what had created it. The future of humanity might depend on what happened in the next hour. No pressure. The GSDI conference room was filled with scientists and government officials from around the world. 3 days had passed since He-Jin's presentation to the board, and now Earth's best minds had gathered to find a solution. He-Jin stood at the front of the room, watching Do-Young explain their latest findings. On the large screen behind him, the black hole's trajectory glowed in red against a map of the solar system. At its current speed, Do-Young said, "We have approximately 4 months before it reaches Earth's orbit." A woman raised her hand. It was Dr. Sun-Hai Kang, the famous quantum mechanics expert from South Korea's Advanced Science Institute. "Have you considered using dark energy to deflect it?" The room went quiet. Dark energy was still largely theoretical. No one had managed to harness it yet. That would be impossible, someone said from the back of the room. Sunhai stood up. Not impossible. My team has been developing a dark energy projector for the past 3 years. It's not complete, but with proper funding and support, we could finish it in time. Hejin looked at Sunhai with interest. She had read about her work but had never met her in person. How would it work? She asked. Sunhai walked to the front of the room. She drew a simple diagram on the whiteboard, explaining how dark energy could push against the black hole's gravitational field. She made the complex physics sound simple and clear. This could work, Mary said excitedly. If we combine it with my findings about the black hole's artificial nature, we might even be able to communicate with whoever created it. Director Lee, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. The cost would be enormous. We would need every major nation to contribute. The cost of doing nothing would be higher, Hejin replied. She looked around the room. We're talking about saving Earth. Surely that's worth any price. The next few hours were filled with intense discussion. Countries argued about who would pay for what, who would control the project, where it would be based. Hejin watched with growing frustration. Finally, she had enough. She stood up and raised her voice. While we argue, that thing gets closer to Earth. My daughter asked me yesterday if she should be afraid. What am I supposed to tell her? That we could have saved the world, but we're too busy fighting about money. The room fell silent. Even Director Lee looked down at his hands. Dr. Park is right, Sunhei said. She walked over to stand next to Hejin. We need to work together. My team will share all our research on the dark energy projector. No patents, no secrets. One by one, other scientists stood up, offering their help. Du Young started writing names on a whiteboard, organizing them into teams. Mi Ray worked with Sunhai, combining their theories about the black hole's nature and how to stop it. They named it Project Horizon. Within hours, the first teams were already at work. Hejin found herself in charge of coordinating the entire operation, with Du Young and Sunhai as her deputy directors. As the meeting ended, Hejin checked her phone. There was a message from Yujin. Mom, I saw you on TV. Are you really going to save the world? Hejin looked around the room at her new team. Sunhai was already sketching designs for the dark energy projector. Mei was explaining her theories to scientists from different countries. Du Young was setting up a global communication network. She typed back to her daughter, We're going to try. And this time, we're not doing it alone. Outside the conference room windows, the sun was setting. Somewhere up there, an artificial black hole was heading toward Earth. But now, humanity was working together to stop it. For the first time since this crisis began, Hejin felt real hope. The Pacific Space Center buzzed with activity as construction of the dark energy projector entered its second month. Sunhai Kang supervised a team of engineers as they assembled the massive device. Its central ring, designed to focus dark energy into a concentrated beam, gleamed under the facility's bright lights. The quantum stabilizers are in place, Sunhei reported to Hejin, who was checking the progress. We're ahead of schedule. Hejin nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. Mei had called an urgent meeting to discuss her latest findings about the black hole's behavior. The young physicist had barely slept in weeks, determined to understand the strange object heading toward Earth. In the research lab, Mei stood before a wall of equations. Her eyes were bright with excitement, despite her obvious exhaustion. I figured it out, she said as Hejin and Sunhai entered. The black hole isn't just slowing down. It's following a precise pattern of deceleration that matches mathematical sequences found in human communications. What do you mean? Hejin asked. Look at this. Mei pointed to a series of numbers. This pattern appears in everything from ancient architecture to modern digital signals. Whatever made this black hole, they want us to notice these patterns. They're trying to communicate. Before they could discuss further, an alarm blared through the facility. Hejin's phone rang immediately. It was Du Young. Someone tried to break into the facility, he said, his voice tense. Security caught them, but they had explosives. Hejin rushed to the security center with Sunhai and Meirei. On the monitors, they could see security officers restraining 3 people. The intruders wore matching pendants with a strange symbol. They're from the Cosmic Truth Movement, the security chief explained. They believe the black hole is a divine sign, and that we shouldn't interfere with it. Hejin felt a chill. They had seen protests outside the facility before, but this was different. This was a real threat to their work. Later that evening, Hejin sat in her office, reviewing security footage. Her phone buzzed with a message from Yujin. Mom, can I visit you at the facility? I want to understand what you're doing. Hejin paused. She had been so focused on saving the world, she had barely spoken to her daughter in weeks. The distance between them had grown even larger than before. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. It was Sunhai. We had a breakthrough with the projector, Sun, he said. But we need someone to manually calibrate the quantum field generators. It's dangerous work. How dangerous? The person who does it will be exposed to high levels of quantum radiation. We have protective suits, but still. Sunhai left the sentence unfinished. Hejin understood. Someone would have to risk their life to make this work. She thought of Yujin's message, of all the families waiting to see if Earth could be saved. I'll do it, Hejin said quietly. Sunhai looked concerned. You don't have to. We can find someone else. No, I started this project. I need to see it through. Hejin picked up her phone and typed a reply to Yujin. Yes, come tomorrow. There's something I need to tell you in person. Outside the facility, the sun set over the Pacific Ocean. Construction crews worked through the night, racing to complete the projector. In her lab, Meirei continued studying the black hole's patterns, searching for a way to communicate with its creators. Time was running out. In 2 months, they would either save Earth or watch it face a force that could tear the planet apart. And somewhere in space, an artificial black hole continued its steady approach, carrying a message they still couldn't understand. The morning of the launch was clear and cold. Hejin stood in the control center of the Pacific Space Center, watching the final preparations on the main screen. The dark energy projector, now mounted on the world's largest space platform, waited on the launch pad. Hyun-Woo Baek, their chief technical officer, ran through the final system checks. His fingers moved quickly across 3 different keyboards as he tested each component. Suddenly, he froze. Dr. Park, he called out, his voice tight with concern. We have a problem with the targeting system. Hejin rushed to his station. The numbers on his screen made her heart sink. The targeting computer was showing errors in its calibration sequence. Without perfect targeting, the dark energy beam could miss the black hole entirely. How long to fix it? She asked. Hyun-Woo shook his head. Hours, maybe days. We'd have to delay the launch. We don't have days, Sunhae said from her station. The black hole's path is fixed. If we miss this window, we won't get another chance. Hejin looked at the countdown clock. 53 minutes until launch. She thought of her conversation with Yujin the day before, when she had finally explained the dangers of her mission. Her daughter had hugged her for the first time in years. There's another way, Sunhai said quietly. We can calibrate it manually from the space platform. But someone would have to stay on board during the launch. Hejin finished. She straightened her back. I already volunteered for the dangerous part. This doesn't change anything. Mom, no. Yujin's voice came from the doorway. She had arrived to watch the launch. You can't. Hejin walked to her daughter. I have to. This is bigger than us. Then I'm staying to watch, Yujin said firmly. I won't leave this time. 30 minutes later, Hejin and Sunhai were suited up in the space platform. The quantum radiation suits were heavy and awkward. They worked quickly, adjusting the delicate instruments that would guide the dark energy beam. In the control room, Meirei monitored the black hole's position. It's maintaining its course, she reported. The deceleration pattern is still active. Whatever message they're sending, we'll have to figure it out after we stop this thing. 10 minutes to launch, Hyunwoo announced. Hye-jin's hands moved steadily over the calibration controls. Sun-Hai called out readings from her instruments. They had done this in simulations dozens of times, but now everything felt different. The fate of Earth hung on their accuracy. 5 minutes. Through the platform's window, Hye-jin could see the ocean stretching to the horizon. Somewhere down there, Yoo-jin was watching. She thought of all the other children looking up at the sky, not knowing if today would save or doom their world. 1 minute. The platform began to vibrate as the engines powered up. Hye-jin completed the final adjustments. Sun-Hai confirmed the readings were perfect. 30 seconds. I love you, Yoo-jin, Hye-jin whispered. Launch sequence engaged. The roar of the engines filled the world. The space platform shuddered and began to rise. Hye-jin and Sun-Hai held on to their stations as the acceleration pushed them down. Through the window, the blue sky grew darker. They were carrying humanity's best hope into space. In a few hours, they would face the black hole. They would either save Earth or watch it fall into darkness. As the platform broke through the atmosphere, Hye-jin saw the stars waiting above. And somewhere among them, an artificial black hole carried a message they still had to decode. The space platform's control room was silent as they approached their target. Through the reinforced windows, Hye-jin could see the black hole clearly now. It appeared as a perfect circle of darkness against the stars, with strange patterns of light dancing around its edges. Dark energy projector at full power, Sun-Hai reported, her voice steady despite the tension. Ready to fire on your command. Hye-jin checked the final calculations. Everything looked correct, but something bothered her about the black hole's behavior. Its deceleration had become even more precise, almost like it was waiting for them. Fire the projector, Hye-jin ordered. A beam of invisible energy shot out from the platform. They could only see its effects as it distorted space around it. The beam struck the edge of the black hole perfectly on target. Nothing happened. No effect. Hyunwoo reported from the ground station. The black hole is absorbing the dark energy. Impossible, Sun-Hai whispered. Nothing should be able to absorb dark energy like that. In the research center below, Mayray was analyzing the new data. Her eyes suddenly went wide. Dr. Park. She called over the radio. The patterns, they're changing. The black hole is responding to our attack. Hye-jin watched in amazement as new patterns of light appeared around the black hole's edge. They pulsed in a regular sequence, like a heartbeat. It's not just mathematical patterns anymore, Mayray continued excitedly. They match basic computer coding sequences, binary patterns, like it's trying to establish a common language. Are you saying we should try to communicate with it? Du-young asked from his station. We have to, Mayray insisted. This isn't a weapon. It's a test. They want to see if we can understand them. Before Hye-jin could respond, a warning alarm blared through the platform. Energy surge detected. Hyunwoo called out. Something's happening. The black hole began to pulse with bright light. Each pulse sent waves of energy toward the platform, making it shake violently. Warning lights flashed across all control panels. Platform hull integrity at 60%, Sun-Hai reported. We need to pull back. But Hye-jin remained focused on the patterns. They were becoming clearer now, more organized. Mayray was right. It wasn't random. It was a language. Ta-1, Hye-jin called to the telescope specialist. Can you modify our signal beam to match those patterns? I think so, he replied. But I'll have to adjust it manually from the projection room. The automatic controls are damaged. It's too dangerous, Sun-Hai protested. The radiation levels in there are too high. We don't have a choice, Tai-1 said quietly. He stood up from his station. If we don't communicate with them now, we might lose our only chance. Hye-jin watched as Tai-1 walked toward the projection room. He turned back once, gave them a small smile, then sealed the door behind him. Hull integrity at 40%, Sun had reported, her voice shaking. On the screens, they could see Ta-1 working quickly with the projector controls. The platform shuddered with each new energy wave from the black hole. Pattern matching initiated. Ta-1's voice came through the radio. Weaker now. Sending response signal. Now. A new beam shot out from the platform, pulsing in perfect rhythm with the black hole's patterns. For a moment, nothing changed. Then, suddenly, the energy waves stopped. The black hole hung motionless in space. Its light patterns shifted again, forming new sequences. "They're answering," Mayray breathed. "They're actually answering." In the projection room, Ta-1 slumped against the controls. His sacrifice had given them their chance. Now they just had to hope they could understand what the black hole's creators were trying to tell them. The patterns from the black hole formed clear sequences now, flooding the space platform's computers with data. Mayray worked frantically to decode them, her eyes moving rapidly across multiple screens as she translated the alien messages. "It's a test," she announced, her voice filled with wonder. "They send these probes to different civilizations. The black hole is designed to see how we would respond to a planetary threat." He-Jin looked through the window at the strange object hanging in space. The platform's hull creaked from the damage it had taken, but the black hole remained stable, waiting for their response. "They want to know if we're ready," Mayray continued. "Ready for contact with their civilization. The way we handled the crisis shows them what kind of species we are." Sun He moved to a different console, checking new readings from their instruments. "The radiation levels are dropping in the projection room," she reported softly. "We should be able to retrieve Ta-1 soon." He-Jin nodded, feeling the weight of their loss. Ta-1's sacrifice had given them this chance. She wouldn't waste it. "How do we prove we're ready?" she asked Mayray. "We need to show we understand their technology. The black hole itself is the key. If we can figure out how to safely dissolve it, we pass their test." In the ground control center, Hyunwoo suddenly sat up straighter. "Wait," he said, "what if we reverse the dark energy beam? Instead of pushing against the black hole, we could match its quantum frequency, like turning off a machine." Sun He's eyes widened. "The calculations would have to be perfect," she said. "One mistake, and we could make it unstable." "Send me your idea," Mayray told Hyunwoo. "I'll compare it to the alien data we received. Maybe they left us instructions we didn't recognize before." For the next hour, the team worked together. Ground control ran simulations while Mayray decoded more of the alien messages. He-Jin and Sun He repaired what they could of the platform systems. Finally, Mayray called out, "This is it." The patterns weren't just communication. They were showing us how their technology works. Hyunwoo was right about the quantum frequency. He-Jin took a deep breath. "How sure are you?" 99%, Mayray replied. "The math matches perfectly." He-Jin looked at each member of her team. Despite everything they had been through, no one showed any doubt. They were ready. "Begin the shutdown sequence," she ordered. Sun He adjusted the dark energy projector, changing its frequency to match the patterns they had discovered. The beam that shot out was different this time. Instead of fighting against the black hole, it seemed to merge with it. The black hole's edges began to blur. The strange lights around it pulsed faster, then slower. Gradually, the darkness at its center started to fade. "It's working," Sun He whispered. In the ground control room, Yoo-Jin watched the main screen with the rest of the team. She held her breath as the black hole grew smaller and smaller. Then, with a final pulse of light, it vanished completely. In its place, a new pattern appeared in space, a series of coordinates. "It's an invitation," Mayray said, her voice full of emotion. "They want us to meet them." He-Jin looked out at the stars where the black hole had been. Humanity had faced its test and passed. They had proven they could work together, that they could understand advanced technology. that they were ready for whatever waited for them out there. The space platform turned back toward Earth, carrying its crew home to a world that would never be the same. The coordinates hung in their computers, promising the beginning of humanity's greatest adventure. 1 year had passed since the black hole vanished from Earth's sky. The Pacific Space Center had changed dramatically, expanding into a massive complex dedicated to interstellar research. New buildings stretched across the coastline, filled with scientists from every nation working together. He-Jin stood at the window of her new office, watching crews construct the latest addition to the facility, the Taiwan Choi Memorial Observatory. The building would house Earth's most advanced space telescope, designed to study the coordinates left by the alien civilization. The latest test results are in, Sun-Hai said, entering the office with a tablet in hand. The dark energy propulsion system is working perfectly. We can achieve faster-than-light travel using the principles we learned from the black hole. He-Jin smiled. Sun-Hai's breakthrough had transformed their understanding of space travel. The technology that had once threatened Earth was now their key to reaching the stars. Mireille arrived next, looking excited. "The Global Defense Network is online," she reported. "We've installed early warning systems based on the alien patterns. No one will be able to surprise Earth like that again." The door opened once more, and He-Jin walked in. She wore the uniform of the International Space Academy, where she was training to become an astronaut. The crisis had changed their relationship completely. They were closer now than ever before. "Mom," He-Jin said, "the memorial service is about to start." They walked together to the center's main auditorium. The room was packed with people from around the world. On the stage stood a simple monument, a piece of the space platform's hull, damaged during their encounter with the black hole. Taiwan's name was engraved on its surface, along with the words, "He helped humanity reach the stars." Director Lee stepped up to the podium. He looked different now, humbler, more open to new ideas. "1 year ago," he began, "we faced what seemed like the end of our world. Instead, it became a beginning." He-Jin watched as images appeared on the screen behind him. Pictures of new research facilities, international cooperation projects, and the massive spacecraft under construction in orbit. Humanity had learned from its trial by fire. After the ceremony, He-Jin found Hyunwoo working in his lab. The technical officer had developed an entirely new branch of physics based on their experience with the black hole. "The new communication array is ready," he told her. "We can send our first message to the coordinates whenever you're ready." He-Jin nodded. They had spent months preparing this message, carefully crafting Earth's formal response to the civilization that had tested them. It would tell them not just that humanity was ready for contact, but that we had grown stronger and wiser from the experience. That evening, He-Jin and He-Jin stood on the observatory's roof, watching the sun set over the Pacific. Construction crews worked through the night, building humanity's future. Satellites tracked any unusual objects approaching Earth, using the detection systems Mireille had developed. "Do you think they'll answer soon?" He-Jin asked, looking up at the stars. "They will," He-Jin replied. "And this time, we'll be ready for them." In her pocket, she carried the data chip containing Earth's message to the stars. Tomorrow, they would send it toward the coordinates, taking humanity's first real step into the galactic community. The black hole that could have destroyed Earth had instead united it, pushing humanity to achieve things they had only dreamed of before. As darkness fell, more stars became visible in the sky. Somewhere out there, an advanced civilization waited to welcome Earth into a larger universe. And thanks to the courage and sacrifice of people like Taiwan, humanity was finally ready for that meeting.